This is Andi Purewal, Boxing Social in association with Betfred. We're in New York and I'm joined by DAZN's Joe Markowski. Joe, firstly, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm good. I'm enjoying being back here in New York. Obviously a big fight week to return to as well. Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. Joe, when yourself and Eddie first got into boxing, I know how keen you guys were to push the female side to the sport. And now you're here delivering the biggest fight as it has been touted in the female side of the sport so far. Would you have imagined of hitting this point at this stage?
Yeah, I think we would. Look, we saw Eddie, to be fair to him, has always had a vision for women's boxing, and he's been very articulate in explaining to DAZN and the DAZN boxing team why he thinks it's a good thing to invest in. More broadly as a business, we've always invested heavily in women's sport because we think women's sport has huge growth potential. We're doing that in football, soccer, with the UEFA Women's Champions League. We've had a long relationship with the WTA in tennis, obviously a leading women's sport property, and we've had that relationship since prior to DAZN in our original parent company Perform Group days. So we've got a long history of investing in women's sport. We want to continue doing that. We're seeing great success with it, and I think this event on Saturday night is going to be a real milestone in the progress for women's sport generally, and obviously notably for women's boxing. We wouldn't be doing it if we didn't think it made good business sense to do. It's not just the right thing to do or just a CSR project or a PR initiative. It's got a lot more value to us than that, and we think that by giving the top female athletes, the top female boxers in this case, the platform to perform, to market themselves, to PR themselves at the same level that their male counterparts do, the eyeballs will come, the commercial value will come, the subscription buys will come, and they'll grow as brands in their own right. So yeah, we're very excited about all of it, and this Saturday's a major part of that strategy.
What do you expect to see between Katie and Amanda come Saturday night, Joe? We know Amanda previously world champion at featherweight when she last fought for a world title and defended her world title, so a weight gap to kind of make up. Granted, she recently fought at lightweight, but yeah, just what are your thoughts on the fight?
I think the matchup's great. I think the atmosphere for both of them is going to be something different to what they're used to probably, so I imagine it will be down to, and it's a game of inches, right? So I imagine it's going to be who handles that better on the night. The spectacle will be fantastic. I hope both of them sort of put that to one side and just get on with what they do best, which is fighting fantastically. As a fan, I can't wait for it. As a spectacle, I can't wait for it. The atmosphere is going to be incredible, and obviously, as I say, very proud that we're broadcasting it exclusively globally.
I know you've not been one to speak about viewing figures and what have you and subscriptions, but what would you say about the growth of DAZN, and especially when you hear comments from other promoters about 10,000 subs or 10,000 viewers at certain shows? Can you rubbish those reports or those comments?
Well, yeah, I think they're rubbish. We wouldn't be continuing to invest in boxing if it didn't make business sense for us. If we wanted to get out of boxing because we were losing our shirt on it, COVID was a very convenient excuse to do so. We didn't do that because it's not. We've reset our boxing business, we've repositioned it for growth, and we're making a great success out of it. So, frankly, people want to talk about our numbers. They seem particularly interested in our numbers. I imagine it's because they think we're a threat. We don't really pay too much attention to that. We just try and crack on with what we're doing, and the next couple of weeks we've got our hands full with two major fight weeks in Taylor Serrano and Canelo Bivol that are far more important than worrying about what whoever has said about whatever. So that's where my focus is and the focus of my team.
How significant is a fight like Canelo Bivol and drawing Canelo onto the DAZN platform once again to push numbers again, because he brings in that huge Mexican following alongside the American fans, the British fans who will tune in? How excited are you for next weekend, Joe?
I'm hugely excited. Any Canelo fight night is a major event. I assume you're on one of your US tours and sticking around for a couple of weeks wearing out your suit. Yeah, look, I think it'd be massive. Working with him's a pleasure. He's great with the media. I think his star and his brand is now cutting through beyond hardcore fans. It's cutting through well beyond Mexican American fans. When we probably first started working with him, the percentage of his audience that was hardcore boxing or Mexican American boxing fans was significant. It's now far more mainstream. We've obviously played a part in that, a small part in that, as does Eddie, but he's done the most. He's obviously performed fantastically. He's marketed himself very well. So yeah, it's a pleasure to work with him, and any Canelo event's huge. I think not enough is being made of how big a test it is. I think sometimes casual boxing fans assume Canelo's going to rock up and beat easily whoever's put in front of him. That is not what's going to happen next weekend. Purewal is a very stern test for Canelo. So I'm very excited about that one as well, purely as a fan. Obviously, major investment from us across both weekends, so there's business to take care of and there'll be some nerves. But we're confident because we're making sensible investments and we know what these guys can deliver for our business, and just excited now to go and execute that and see what we can do with it.
Joe, we've seen Triple G recently defeat Ryota Murata out in Japan, and we know that's going to lead to the trilogy bout with Canelo later this year. But there were some criticisms, but some people who weren't maybe as open to seeing the trilogy bout because of how Gennady looked in the opening rounds of that fight. Have you seen those criticisms? Are you aware of that?
Well, the first thing I'd say is Canelo's got to beat Purewal. I mean, I wouldn't think about that yet because it's disrespectful. I think those people who assume it's going to happen to the test he's got next weekend. I don't think Canelo wants to talk about that yet. I think he wants to focus on his business next weekend. If that fight does happen, it's a fight that attracts, given the history between the two of them, global appeal. It will be a mainstream sporting event, a significant one in the US in particular, and North America. Gennady Golovkin always starts slowly though. I think that's a pretty known fact, right? So I don't read too much into that. I know that there's a huge amount of intrigue around that fight if it happens, but we're not really thinking about that yet. We're marketing this weekend, Serrano and Canelo Purewal next weekend. So as and when we get to that, we'll get to it. But Canelo's got to focus on Purewal, and that's where our focus is too.
Joe, just away from these couple of weeks to get your thoughts on a couple of other topics. Obviously, I've asked you previously about Anthony Joshua and his network status. Still nothing being announced. When you hear people talk, it's either yourself or Sky which are being mentioned. Where do things currently stand on your side?
Yeah, ongoing conversations. The fight, the rematch with Usyk is obviously a big commercial operation. We're a part of that, or the broadcaster is a part of that. The process, finding a site, agreeing the commercial terms between the fighters, that all happens before we sort of come to the bidding for broadcast and media rights. So we're going through that process, or Eddie is going through that process, and Frank with the Matchroom team, 258 and Usyk's team. So as and when there's a deal, when they want to see bids from broadcasters, we'll be there. Look, we're going to be involved in those conversations. Of course we are. And we'll have to see if we're successful or if someone else gets the rights. But look, clearly we've got a long 4-year history now working with AJ internationally. We love working with him. And if we've got the opportunity to do so again domestically, that's really interesting. But obviously we'll have to look at the numbers and do our analysis before we commit to anything and announce anything.
If you was to get the rights to Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk too, would that land on pay-per-view in the UK?
Yeah, it would, because AJ is a pay-per-view star. And I'm sure we'll get some stick for that, but AJ's an established pay-per-view star. He is the leading pay-per-view boxer in the UK, has been for many, many years now. So that's the reality of making those fights happen. We'll need to put it on a pay-per-view platform. What I would say is, as I've said to your US colleagues when we had this conversation about Canelo, what is clear in our business is that we will continue to be the best value play in boxing. We're very confident that we are. I don't think there's much debate about that, particularly here in the US, where we're more established as a broadcast platform for boxing. Central to our strategy is going to be delivering value to boxing fans. That's not going to change with the rollout of a pay-per-view platform in the UK. So that's what's most important to fans, and that's what's most important to us.
Do you understand the criticisms that come alongside that, Joe? Just going back to when you guys first teamed up with Eddie, saying you're going to the UK, and you both said that there wasn't really a plan to open a pay-per-view side to things. Those were the comments that people have gone back on the videos, people have dug up and found. Would you say, I wouldn't really want to say naive, but it was a wrong thing to say at the time? Now you understand the market maybe a bit more?
Naive, no. I think businesses evolve and your learnings of the markets you're in evolves. I wouldn't say we came into the UK singing from the rooftops about no pay-per-view, not shying away from the fact in the US we did, and nice to be reminded of my previous comments with our friends on Twitter every now and then. But look, I'll hold my hands up, and we as a business world, we've learned. The market's changed, the cost of doing business has changed, there's inflationary pressure, the value of some of the fighters that we work with has gone dramatically up. Canelo's a good example of that. So, not going to shy away from it. We've learned, we've changed our business model. Do I still think we believe passionately that we're the best value play in boxing? Yes. Do the numbers suggest that consumers think that too? Yes, they do. So, whilst happy to take criticism, happy to be held to account by fans as we should be and consumers always, we deliver a pretty good value offer to boxing fans. We invest heavily in the sport, not just in fights, but in content, in providing opportunities for the journalists around the sport, yourself included, to tell new and interesting stories. We're a pretty good boxing operator in that way, and ultimately that is focused on delivering value to fans. So obviously fans can vote with their feet. I'm happy that the vast majority of people we establish consumer relationship with, people who subscribe to DAZN, stick around and come back because they understand and appreciate the value we offer. That's always going to be front of mind for us because it's core to our business. It's one of our principles.
Just one final one on pay-per-view talk, Joe. Doesn't affect me from UK or from over in the US, but we saw Ryan Garcia vs. Tago was on pay-per-view in Canada, and that drew heavy criticism. What do you class as what should be a pay-per-view fight, and why was that on pay-per-view out in Canada?
Look, what pay-per-view in DAZN is going to be used sparingly. We're going to be using it where we need to make fights happen. The Ryan Garcia thing was a specific thing that we needed to do for reasons I won't go into. Candidly, in Canada, there's not a huge audience for that fight. The major markets for that fight were clearly the US, number one by a country mile. So if fans were affected by that in Canada, I apologise. It won't affect the vast majority of our boxing subscription base. There will be a sparing use as and when we need to use it to make fights happen. That was one example of that happening. Canelo Bivol was another. I think it's safe to assume that all, if not most, Canelo fights on DAZN will be pay-per-views going forward, such is the reality of the market. That's true of any broadcast platform in the US. I think in the UK, the big fights would also be subject to the same treatment. Anthony Joshua against Usyk, if we get it, being one very good example. So, look, I'd ask for some patience here. Give us a year, see how it plays out. You're never going to be forced to buy the pay-per-view if you don't want to, clearly. We hope you will, because the ones we put on pay-per-view will be major fights. But if you don't like it, understand, respect the opinions of the fan, and they don't have to buy it. We'll continue to focus on value, and the month-to-month offer on DAZN is best in class on value.
Away from pay-per-view talk, Joe, just a couple of other topics just to end on. After Rolly Romero fights Gervonta Davis, it seems that Gervonta may be a free agent. Will you guys be pushing to try to sign Gervonta, backing Eddie to try and sign him because of that potential Ryan Garcia fight which has been spoken about?
Yeah, we'll be backing our promotional partners to go and sign any free agent who we think's got commercial value and an interesting fan base. Gervonta definitely has that. It won't be a job for me personally or DAZN. It's a job for Eddie or Golden Boy or one of our promotional partners who can, bring us a deal that makes sense. They all have guidelines they work and they understand what DAZN want to see, and I imagine one or more of them will be active in those conversations. So yeah, let's see what happens.
And final one, obviously we saw Devin Haney versus George Kambosos land on ESPN with a top-ranked deal there. How frustrating was it for you guys not to get that one over the line, given the work you've put into Devin's career over the last couple of years, and why were you unable to get it over the line?
Ultimately, the deal points didn't make sense for us. It's a competitive market. A lot of money gets thrown around. We are pretty smart now at working out what a fight is worth to us, and we're disciplined enough to step away when it doesn't. We're not in the business of throwing money around loosely or irresponsibly. We don't do that. And ultimately the numbers that were being offered elsewhere, we weren't going to match. So Devin's a fantastic partner. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of the business. We wish him obviously all the best. Frustrating maybe, but such is life, and that is, such is business. So no hard feelings, and we'll see what happens after this sequence of fights he's got coming up.
Does it affect your strategy moving into the Australian market?
I mean, we're active in Australia with our global platform product. I don't think we've ever had specific plans to go and launch in Oz. I know Eddie's looking at it as a market where he sees interest. We're definitely not ready to make that investment or go and put boots on the ground yet. We'll see, maybe in the future, but Kambosos Haney was never part of some broader strategy. It was a fight that would have primarily served our American business. And look, we wish everyone involved in that fight all the best, and obviously we're willing to speak and work with Devin again as and when he's ready to come and talk to us.
Final one, Joe. This past weekend back in the UK, Tyson Fury stopped Dillian Whyte. Just your thoughts on Tyson's performance and his win and the stoppage?
Yeah, great performance. I think we outboxed Dillian and then obviously stopped him. Looked like a great atmosphere. I watched it with my mates here, so it was great. It was nice to enjoy a fight purely as a fan without any real involvement. So obviously he's the man right now, isn't he? So interesting to see the winner of AJ Usyk, what happens after that. But the man in possession is Tyson Fury, and good luck to him.
Well, Joe, I appreciate your time now. Probably taken a bit longer than what you thought, but it's a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you for speaking to me in Boxing Social.
Cheers, good to see you.